your original voice, that's someone you really want to hold on to. Welcome back to Composition and Its Allies. My name is Barney. I'm a classical composer, and this is a channel for composers as well as performers interested in composition. In today's episode of Composition for Beginners, we're going to talk about whether or not to get a teacher. And spoiler alert, I'm not going to give a fixed opinion. I will just try to present the information as accurately as I can. I think there are pros to having a teacher, and I think there are some definite cons, okay? Let's start with the pros. The pros are you have advice or second opinion, you have a mentor, and then you have someone that can redirect you, okay? When you're a composer, remember that you're the king or queen. You're an emperor or empress, okay? So you are the ultimate decider, but you may need advice from other people, okay? Some of the advice that you can get from your teacher is information about form, okay? Not imposing a form, but they can tell you this section is too long. This section feels too short. They can see things a little more objectively. For example, I had a teacher that once told me, this section, you need to change the key. It's taking too long in the key. Another value of the teacher is that they can talk about what to do with filler material. I find a lot of times with beginner composers that they can compose a really nice melody and there's like a nice accompaniment, but then they don't know what to do with the remaining instruments. And so that's something your teacher can address, or they can at least indicate a certain textbook that might, or score that might be of use for you. Also, idiomatic writing. So a common problem for young composers, beginner composers, when they're writing for instruments they don't know, it is way too difficult and it just isn't natural for those instruments, okay? So your teacher should be experienced in this and can advise you. For example, for violin, having rapid leaps probably doesn't make a lot of sense. Your teacher can also be a mentor for you. Okay. For example, I had a couple pieces where the rehearsal process was really tense, and I was able to talk to my teacher and he or she could give me suggestions of what I could say to performers, what I could do, so that I can kind of ease that through. Your teacher can also send you to the right places for things that they can't personally address. For example, my teacher from grad school recognized I needed to learn harmony and counterpoint, but didn't have the time in the lesson to address it, so suggested I go to a summer program, and eventually I ended up moving to Paris to study those things. Your teacher can also reorient you if you're off the wrong path, because you'll hopefully form a personal relationship with the teacher. And I still keep in touch with my teachers. And one of my teachers will, when I touch base with him sometimes, he will always remind me, you got to compose, you got to compose. Because the big thing that happens for us as composers is that we get sucked in by the drama of life. Oh, I don't have money. I don't have this. I have to do this. I have to look for work. And then you put composition on the side. I'll do it tomorrow. And before you know it, 6 months go by and you haven't composed. So a good teacher will remind you, you got to compose, you got to compose, even though they're no longer your teacher. Okay, I do think there are some cons to having a teacher. The first con is the time commitment, okay? So weekly lessons, probably going to be an hour, okay? You got to commute, you got to go to the lesson. Maybe you want to do bi-weekly, but it takes longer to build a rapport with the teacher, or once a month, but that takes even longer to get in the flow with that teacher. And how can they invest in you if you're not investing in them? So if at all possible, you would want regular lessons. But if you're working full time, if you have a family you have to take responsibility for, how are you going to fit in the lesson time? Another thing that isn't always an issue, but I ran into when I was in Paris, is that you may need to make your music presentable so that your teacher can go through it. So for example, I had a teacher in Paris who had bad eyesight, so I had to spend extra time typing up the music, and I just didn't have the time to do it. So this is another kind of problem when you do have a teacher. Another big issue that can happen with a teacher, it's not the end of the world, is they can misadvise you. So I once had a teacher, I was having severe composer's block. I just could not compose, or I was just constantly dissatisfied. I just couldn't seem to finish anything. And his solution was that I needed to work on harmony and counterpoint. And yes, long term, I think it was very beneficial to work on harmony and counterpoint, but it didn't solve the immediate problem. The immediate problem I later discovered was that I didn't have deadlines. I didn't have performers to work with. I didn't have concerts. Okay. So these are some of the things that you might want to think about. One bonus thing I'd like to add is if you ever have a teacher that can really see your authentic voice, like let's say they can look through your music and they recognize where you're being your authentic self, your original voice, that's someone you really want to hold on to. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you the best of luck as a composer.